There is something happening right now that most people born under this sign will not even notice until it has already reshaped the way they feel about everything. And that is exactly what makes it so powerful. You did not wake up one morning and suddenly feel different. No, this has been creeping in slowly, like the tide pulling back before a wave you did not see coming. The quiet shift that changes your mood. It does not announce itself. It does not knock on your door and ask permission. It moves through the small things first, the way your mornings feel heavier than they used to, the way certain conversations leave you drained when they never did before, the way you catch yourself staring out the window wondering if something needs to change but you cannot quite name what it is. That restlessness you have been carrying, the one you keep pushing down because you think it is just stress or just a bad week. It is not random. It is a signal. And if you are watching this right now, there is a reason you were drawn to it. Something inside you already knows that the ground beneath your feet is shifting, and you are standing at the edge of a decision you have been avoiding. This is not about dramatic life changes or burning everything down. This is about the subtle internal rewiring that happens when you finally stop ignoring the whispers your own mind has been sending you. Over the next several minutes, you are going to hear things that will feel uncomfortably accurate. Not because anyone is reading your mind, but because the patterns of this sign are so specific, so deeply woven into who you are, that when someone finally names them out loud, it hits differently. So stay with this, all the way through, because the last part of this message carries something you genuinely need to hear right now. Tip 1. The weight you carry is not yours to fix. There is a pattern that runs deep in you, and it has been running for so long that you probably think it is just who you are. You feel responsible for things that are not your responsibility, not in some dramatic, obvious way. You do not walk around announcing that you carry the weight of the world. No, it is quieter than that. It shows up in the way you mentally scan every room you walk into, checking if someone is upset, if something is off, if there is a problem forming that you could prevent before it even starts. You do this automatically. You have been doing it for years. And here is what nobody tells you. That habit, that constant invisible labor of monitoring everyone else's emotional temperature, is one of the biggest reasons your mood shifts without warning. You will be having a perfectly fine day. Everything is calm. And then you walk into a room where someone is in a bad mood, and within minutes, your entire energy changes. You did not do anything wrong. Nothing happened to you directly, but your system picked up on the tension, and now your body is responding as if the problem is yours to solve. This is not sensitivity in the way most people talk about it. This is something deeper. This is a nervous system that was trained, probably from a very young age, to be the one who notices, the one who adjusts, the one who smooths things over before conflict can even begin. And the cost of that, the real cost, is that you rarely get to just exist. You rarely get to sit in a room and simply be present without your mind running calculations in the background. Who needs what? What might go wrong? How you can prevent discomfort for someone else. It is exhausting, and the worst part is that most people around you have no idea you are doing it. They do not see the labor because you have gotten so good at making it look effortless. They think you are just naturally calm, naturally composed, naturally the person who holds everything together. But underneath that composure, there is a tiredness that sleep does not fix. This is the first shift that needs to happen. Not a dramatic declaration that you are done caring about people. That is not who you are, and it never will be. The shift is subtler than that. It is the recognition that you have been treating other people's emotions as emergencies that require your immediate response, and most of the time, they are not emergencies at all. Someone being in a bad mood is not a crisis. Someone feeling frustrated is not a fire you need to put out. Someone being disappointed does not mean you failed. These are just human experiences happening around you, and you are allowed to witness them without absorbing them. The mood shift you have been feeling lately, that heaviness that seems to come from nowhere, a significant part of it is coming from this exact pattern. You have been carrying emotional weight that was never yours, and your body is finally starting to protest. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, through fatigue, through irritability, through that nagging feeling that something is off but you cannot name it. Your system is telling you that it is time to put some of this down. Not all of it, just the pieces that were never yours to begin with. And when you start doing that, even in small ways, you will notice something remarkable. The heaviness lifts. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you stopped volunteering for a job that nobody asked you to do. That is where this begins. Not with grand gestures or life overhauls. With the quiet, honest acknowledgement that you have been overfunctioning, and it is okay to stop. Tip 2. Your standards are not the problem, your silence about them is. You have been told your entire life that you are too picky, too particular, too hard to please, and somewhere along the way you started to believe it. You started apologizing for having standards. You started lowering them not because you wanted to, but because you were tired of being the one who always seemed to want more than what was being offered. And that decision, that quiet compromise you made with yourself, has been eating at you ever since. Here is the truth that nobody frames correctly for this sign. Your standards are not too high. They never were. The problem was never that you expected too much. The problem is that you stopped communicating what you needed because you got tired of being made to feel like you were being unreasonable. So instead of speaking up, you went silent. You accepted things that did not sit right with you. You told yourself it was fine when it was not fine. You adjusted and adapted and made yourself smaller, and every single time you did that, a little piece of your peace went with it. This is why your mood has been shifting. Not because life got harder, but because the gap between what you are living and what you actually need has gotten too wide to ignore. You know exactly what you want. You have always known. You are one of the most clear-minded signs when it comes to understanding what works and what does not. The issue is that you have been suppressing that clarity to make other people comfortable, and your body is done with the arrangement. Think about it. Think about the last time you accepted something that you knew was not right for you. Maybe it was a situation where someone kept showing up late and you said nothing. Maybe it was a conversation where someone dismissed your concern, and you let it go to avoid conflict. Maybe it was a relationship dynamic where you were giving far more than you were receiving and you convinced yourself that bringing it up would make you seem demanding. In every one of those moments, you chose peace on the surface at the expense of peace within yourself. And those moments add up. They stack on top of each other until the weight becomes this unnamed frustration that colors everything. The shift that is coming for you is not about becoming difficult or confrontational. It is about becoming honest. Honest in a way that you have been avoiding because honesty requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels dangerous when you have spent your whole life being the capable one, the dependable one, the one who never makes a fuss. But here is what you need to understand. Your silence is not keeping the peace. It is just delaying the conflict while slowly destroying your inner calm. Every unspoken boundary is a crack in your foundation, and enough cracks will eventually bring the whole structure down. You do not have to deliver your truth with force. That is not your style and it does not need to be. But you do need to deliver it. Clearly, consistently, without apologizing for having needs. The people who belong in your life will not be threatened by your standards. They will respect them. They will appreciate knowing exactly where they stand with you. And the people who cannot handle your honesty, those are the people whose comfort you have been prioritizing over your own well-being. Let that sink in for a moment. You have been protecting the comfort of people who would not do the same for you. That pattern ends now. Not with anger, with clarity. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Tip 3. The overthinking is not helping you prepare, it is keeping you stuck. You think of yourself as someone who plans, someone who considers all angles before making a move. And in many ways that is true. Your analytical mind is one of your greatest strengths. But there is a line between thoughtful preparation and mental paralysis, and you crossed that line a long time ago. What you have been calling planning is actually anxiety wearing a productive disguise. You are not thinking things through. You are thinking things in circles. The same worries, the same scenarios, the same imagined conversations playing on repeat in your mind like a song you cannot turn off. And here is the part that will sting a little. Most of the things you are overthinking will never happen. You are spending hours of mental energy on problems that do not exist yet and may never exist. You are rehearsing arguments with people who are not even thinking about you right now. You are preparing for worst-case scenarios that have a fraction of a % chance of becoming real. And in the meantime, the actual present moment, the one you are living in right now, keeps passing by unnoticed because your mind is too busy living 3 weeks ahead. This is one of the biggest reasons your mood fluctuates. Your body does not know the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. When you sit there running worst-case scenarios in your head, your nervous system responds as if those things are actually happening. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tighten. Your breathing gets shallow. Your body is having a stress response to a fictional event, and it is doing this multiple times a day. Of course you feel drained. Of course your mood shifts unexpectedly. You are living through imaginary crises on a daily basis and wondering why you feel exhausted by the end of the afternoon. The shift here is not about turning off your mind. You cannot do that, and trying to do that only creates more frustration. The shift is about recognizing the moment when thinking stops being useful and starts being self-destructive. There is a very specific point in every overthinking cycle where you stop gathering useful information and start generating fear. Learn to notice that point. It usually feels like a tightening in your chest or a quickening of your thoughts. That is the signal. That is your mind telling you that you have crossed from preparation into rumination, and nothing productive is going to come from staying there. What helps is not thinking less. It is acting sooner. Most of the things you overthink would resolve themselves in 5 minutes of honest conversation or 30 minutes of actual effort. But instead of doing the thing, you spend 3 days thinking about doing the thing, imagining every possible outcome, and then you are so mentally exhausted by the time you finally act that it feels 10 times harder than it actually is. The overthinking is not protecting you. It is stealing your energy and replacing it with doubt. And that doubt is the real enemy here, not the situation itself, but the story your mind creates about the situation before it even unfolds. You are smarter than this pattern. You know that. Somewhere beneath the noise, there is a calm, clear voice that knows exactly what to do. The problem is that you keep drowning it out with analysis. Let the voice speak. Let it guide you. And move before your mind has time to talk you out of it. That is where your power lives. Not in the planning, in the doing. Tip 4. You are allowed to rest without earning it first. This one is going to challenge something that sits at the very core of how you operate. You believe deeply and almost unconsciously that rest must be earned. That you cannot sit down until the work is done. That taking a break before everything is handled is laziness, and laziness is the one thing you refuse to be. This belief has been driving you for as long as you can remember, and it has produced results. You are reliable. You are productive. You get things done when other people would have given up. But that same belief is also the reason you cannot relax without guilt, and that guilt is poisoning the rest you desperately need. Think about the last time you sat down to do nothing. Not to scroll through your phone, not to watch something while mentally running through your to-do list, but to genuinely do nothing. To just sit and breathe and let your body recover. You probably cannot remember the last time that happened because every time you try, a voice in the back of your mind starts listing everything that still needs to be done. The dishes, the emails, the errand you forgot about, the project that is almost finished but not quite. That voice never stops, and as long as you keep obeying it, you will never truly rest. Here is what you need to hear. Rest is not a reward. It is a requirement. Your body is not a machine that can run continuously without maintenance. Your mind is not a computer that can process endless tasks without crashing. You are a human being, and human beings need downtime. Not as a luxury, not as something you squeeze in after everything else is handled, but as a fundamental part of functioning. When you deny yourself rest, you do not become more productive. You become less effective, more irritable, more prone to mistakes, and more likely to snap at people for minor things that would not normally bother you. Sound familiar? The mood shifts you have been experiencing, the ones that seem to come from nowhere. Many of them are directly connected to this pattern. You are running on empty and then wondering why everything feels harder than it should. You are pushing through exhaustion because stopping feels irresponsible, and then you are confused when your patience runs out or your motivation disappears. This is not a character flaw. This is a body that has been asking for a break and getting ignored. The shift here requires something that feels almost impossible for your sign. It requires you to give yourself permission to rest before the work is done, to take a nap when the laundry is still in the basket, to sit on the porch for 20 minutes when there are still emails to answer, to say out loud if you need to that this is enough for today. The world will not fall apart. The tasks will still be there tomorrow. But you will approach them with a clearer mind and a steadier mood, and that makes everything easier. Not because you worked harder, but because you finally stopped punishing yourself for being human. You have spent years proving that you are capable. Nobody doubts that. The question now is whether you are willing to be kind to yourself with the same dedication you bring to everything else. That kindness starts with rest. Real rest. Unearned, unapologetic, guilt-free rest. And if that feels uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is a sign that you are breaking a pattern that needed breaking a long time ago. Tip 5. The people who drain you are not going to change. There is someone in your life right now, maybe more than one person, who consistently leaves you feeling worse after every interaction. You know exactly who they are. You have known for a while. But you keep engaging, keep showing up, keep giving them chances because you believe in potential. You see what they could be if they just tried a little harder, if they just cared a little more, if they just recognized what they were doing. And that belief in their potential is the exact thing that keeps you trapped. This is one of the most painful patterns for your sign because it goes against everything you want to believe about people. You want to believe that everyone is capable of growth. You want to believe that if you just explain things clearly enough, if you just give them one more chance, they will finally get it. But here is the hard truth. Some people are not interested in getting it. Some people are perfectly comfortable with the dynamic as it is. You are the one who is uncomfortable, and you are the one who keeps adjusting, which means you are the one who keeps losing. Every time you go back to someone who drains you, you are making a statement about what you think you deserve. You are saying through your actions that their potential matters more than your peace, that their comfort matters more than yours, that the version of them you hope will show up one day is worth the version of them you actually experience every single time. And it is not. That hoped-for version does not exist yet, and it is not your responsibility to create it. The mood shift connected to this pattern is significant. Think about how you feel after spending time with someone who takes more than they give. Not immediately, but an hour later, 2 hours later, the next morning. There is a heaviness that settles in. A subtle resentment that you do not want to feel but cannot quite shake. A frustration directed partly at them and partly at yourself for allowing it to happen again. That emotional hangover is a message from your deepest self, telling you that something in this dynamic is fundamentally wrong and needs to change. The change is not about confrontation. It is not about dramatic speeches or burning bridges. For your sign, the most powerful change is often the quietest one. It is the phone call you do not return, the invitation you decline, the conversation you keep short, the availability you reduce. You do not owe anyone an explanation for protecting your energy. You do not need to justify why you are pulling back. The people who deserve to be in your life will notice the distance and ask what is wrong. And those conversations can be honest and productive. The people who do not deserve to be there will simply fade. And their fading will tell you everything you need to know. You have been watering dead plants and wondering why your garden is not growing. The energy you spend on people who drain you is energy that could be going toward things and people that actually nourish you. And right now, in this season of your life, that redirection is not optional. It is essential. Your mood, your clarity, your sense of self. All of it depends on your willingness to stop investing in people who give you nothing back. Not from a place of bitterness, from a place of finally choosing yourself. Tip 6. Your body has been trying to tell you something. You live so much in your mind that you have developed an almost complete disconnect from what is happening in your body. And your body has been talking. It has been sending you signals for weeks, maybe months, and you have been dismissing every single one of them. The tight shoulders you attribute to a bad pillow. The headaches you blame on not drinking enough water. The stomach issues you write off as something you ate. The fatigue you explain away as just being busy. Every one of those symptoms is a message, and you have been ignoring the messenger. Your sign has a particular relationship with health that is both a strength and a vulnerability. On one hand, you are more aware of health and wellness than most. You read about it, you think about it, you know what you should be doing. On the other hand, there is often a massive gap between what you know and what you actually practice. You know you need more sleep, but you stay up doing one more thing. You know you need to move your body, but you convince yourself you will start next week. You know that certain foods make you feel terrible, but you eat them anyway because it is convenient. And then you are surprised when your body starts protesting in ways you cannot ignore. The connection between your physical state and your mood is not subtle. It is direct and powerful. When your body is tense, your mind is tense. When your sleep is disrupted, your emotional resilience drops dramatically. When you are not nourishing yourself properly, your thoughts become darker, your patience shrinks, and your ability to handle everyday stress diminishes. You are not experiencing random mood shifts. You are experiencing the natural consequence of a body that has been neglected by a mind that thinks it can solve everything through analysis alone. This is the shift that often gets overlooked because it seems too simple, too basic. Your analytical mind wants a complex explanation for why you feel the way you do, and the answer is sometimes embarrassingly straightforward. You feel bad because you have not moved your body in 4 days. You are irritable because you went to bed too late 3 nights in a row. You are anxious because you have been running on caffeine and skipping meals. These are not deep psychological issues. These are maintenance failures, and they have a massive impact on everything else. The invitation here is to start listening to your body the way you listen to your mind. With the same attention, the same respect, the same willingness to respond. When your shoulders are tight, stop and stretch instead of pushing through. When you are tired, sleep instead of adding one more task to the evening. When your stomach is bothering you, pay attention to what you ate and make a different choice next time. These are small actions, and your mind will dismiss them as insignificant, but their cumulative effect is enormous. Your body is not separate from your emotional life. It is the foundation of it. Every mood you experience is filtered through a physical system, and when that system is depleted, everything feels harder, heavier, and more overwhelming than it actually is. The quiet shift that changes your mood, part of it is happening right here, in the space between what your body needs and what you are actually giving it. Close that gap and watch how many of your so-called emotional problems begin to dissolve. Not because you figured them out, but because you finally gave your body what it was asking for all along. Tip 7. Perfectionism is stealing your joy. You finished something recently, something that required effort, attention, and skill. And instead of feeling proud, instead of sitting with the satisfaction of completion, your mind immediately went to what could have been better. The one thing you missed, the detail that was not quite right, the way it could have been if you had just had a little more time. That pattern, that relentless focus on the gap between what is and what could be, is one of the deepest sources of unhappiness in your life. And you barely even recognize it as a problem because it feels so natural. Perfectionism for your sign does not look the way most people imagine it. It is not about being obsessive or controlling, although it can sometimes appear that way from the outside. It is about an internal standard that is always just slightly out of reach. No matter how well you do something, there is always a version of it in your mind that is a little bit better, a little more polished, a little closer to ideal. And because that ideal version exists in your head, the real version always feels like a disappointment. You are not comparing yourself to other people. You are comparing yourself to an impossible version of yourself, and that comparison will never end well. This is why compliments feel uncomfortable. Someone tells you that you did a great job, and your first internal response is to think about the 3 things they did not notice that were wrong. Someone praises your work, and you feel like a fraud because you know it could have been better. Someone thanks you for something you did, and instead of receiving it, you deflect it, minimize it, or redirect the conversation because accepting praise feels dishonest when you know you did not meet your own standard. And that standard, let us talk about that standard for a moment. Who said it? Where did it come from? When you really examine it, you will realize that nobody asked you to be this precise. Nobody required this level of excellence. You imposed it on yourself, and now you cannot figure out how to live up to the rules you created. The mood impact of this is enormous. Perfectionism does not just affect how you feel about your work. It affects how you feel about yourself. When nothing is ever good enough, you are never good enough. When every output has a flaw, you start to feel fundamentally flawed. The critical voice that evaluates your work is the same critical voice that evaluates your worth, and that voice is merciless. It does not take days off. It does not grade on a curve. It holds you to an impossible standard every single day, and then punishes you for falling short. The shift here is not about lowering your standards or becoming careless. That would go against everything you are, and it is not necessary. The shift is about expanding your definition of success to include imperfection. To look at something you did and say, this is good. Not perfect, good. And to let that be enough. To finish a task and feel the satisfaction of completion without immediately scanning for flaws. To receive a compliment and simply say thank you, without the mental footnotes about everything the person did not see. You have been robbing yourself of joy for years. Every accomplishment that should have felt like a victory was immediately downgraded by your internal critic. Every milestone that deserved celebration was overshadowed by your awareness of what was still missing. That pattern is not making you better. It is making you exhausted and joyless. And the quiet shift that changes your mood includes this: the willingness to let good be enough, to put something down and walk away without looking back, to be imperfect and still be at peace. Tip 8. You have been giving your future too much power over your present. You are a planner, thinker, someone who naturally looks ahead and tries to prepare for what is coming. And in many ways, this has served you well. You are rarely caught off guard. You are rarely unprepared. You walk into situations with a plan, and that plan gives you a sense of control that feels essential to your well-being. But here is the shadow side of that tendency that you probably do not want to hear. Your focus on the future has been stealing your ability to enjoy right now. Think about the last time you were genuinely present, not thinking about tomorrow, not planning next week, not worrying about something that might happen next month. Just here, just now, just fully in the moment you were living. If you are honest with yourself, those moments are rare. Because even in good moments, even in moments that should feel peaceful or joyful, part of your mind is somewhere else. It is anticipating the next problem, scanning for what could go wrong, running calculations about what you need to do to maintain the stability you have worked so hard to create. This future-focused anxiety is sneaky because it disguises itself as responsibility. You tell yourself that thinking ahead is smart, that being prepared is wise, that worrying is just planning with a negative twist. But the truth is, you are not preparing for the future. You are sacrificing the present on the altar of a future that does not exist yet. You are trading actual, real, happening right now moments for hypothetical scenarios that may never come to pass. And every time you do that, you miss something. A sunset, a conversation, a laugh, a quiet, beautiful moment that will never come again. Lost because your mind was busy living 3 days ahead. The cost of this pattern is not just missed moments. It is a pervasive sense that life is always just about to get good but never actually arrives. You are always almost there, almost stable enough to relax, almost secure enough to enjoy, almost finished enough to take a breath. But that threshold keeps moving because it was never a real destination. It was a moving target created by a mind that does not know how to stop preparing and start living. Your mood is directly affected by this. The low-grade anxiety that sits in your chest most of the time, the one you have gotten so used to that you barely notice it anymore. That is the physical sensation of living in the future while your body is stuck in the present. Your nervous system is responding to threats that have not materialized, and it is doing it all day, every day. No wonder you feel tired. No wonder your fuse is short. No wonder small things feel overwhelming. You are running a simulation of tomorrow's problems while simultaneously trying to function in today's reality. And that dual processing is burning through your energy reserves. The shift is about learning to trust that you will handle things when they arrive. Not before, not in advance. When they arrive, you have evidence for this. Think about every difficult thing you have faced in your life. You handled it. Not perfectly, not painlessly, but you handled it. You figured it out. You adapted. You survived. And you did all of that without the hours of advance worrying actually making any difference. The worrying did not help. It just exhausted you before the challenge even began. Trust your own competence. Trust that when life brings something to your door, you will know what to do. And in the meantime, be here. Fully, completely, radically here. Because this moment, the one you keep rushing past on your way to somewhere else. This is your life. And it is happening right now. Some people watch. Others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting. It's about moving. Tip 9. You need to stop apologizing for taking up space. You say sorry too much. You know it. The people around you know it. You apologize for things that require no apology, and you do it so automatically that you do not even realize you are doing it half the time. Sorry for asking a question. Sorry for having an opinion. Sorry for needing something. Sorry for existing in a way that might possibly, hypothetically, inconvenience someone else for even a fraction of a second. This apologizing habit is not politeness. It is a symptom of something much deeper, and it is directly connected to the mood shifts you have been experiencing. When you constantly apologize for your presence, you are sending a message to yourself. And that message is, I do not have the right to be here. I do not have the right to need things. I do not have the right to take up space. You are not saying this consciously. You would probably disagree with it if someone pointed it out. But your behavior tells a different story. Every unnecessary sorry is a small act of self-erasure. And those small acts accumulate into a pattern that fundamentally shapes how you see yourself and how others see you. People respond to the energy you put out. When you apologize for everything, you train the people around you to expect your accommodation. You teach them that your needs are secondary, that your preferences are negotiable, that your time is less valuable than theirs. And then you resent them for treating you exactly the way you taught them to. This is not their fault. You set the terms of the relationship by consistently putting yourself last, and they simply accepted the arrangement you offered. If you want different treatment, you need to stop offering yourself at a discount. The connection to your mood is this. Every time you shrink yourself, every time you apologize for something that does not warrant an apology, you swallow a little piece of your own validity. You push your needs down one more level. You make yourself one shade more invisible. And over time, that accumulated invisibility becomes a kind of suffocation. You feel unseen, unheard, unvalued. But the truth is, you made yourself unseen. You muted your own voice. And now the silence is so loud inside you that it is affecting everything. This pattern often started early. Maybe you grew up in an environment where being quiet was rewarded and being loud was punished. Maybe you learned that the safest way to navigate your world was to take up as little space as possible. Maybe you watched someone else demand attention and decided you never wanted to be like that. Whatever the origin, the result is the same. You have been living a life that is smaller than you are, and your true self is pushing against the walls of that smallness, and that pushing is what the mood shift feels like. The change does not require you to become aggressive or loud or self-centered. That is not who you are, and it is not what is needed. What is needed is for you to occupy your full space without apologizing for it. To ask for what you need without prefacing it with sorry. To share your opinion without shrinking your voice. To walk into a room and know that you belong there, not because you have earned your place through service and accommodation, but simply because you are there. That is enough. You are enough. And the moment you start living as if that is true, everything around you will begin to shift in ways you cannot yet imagine. You have been quietly shrinking for a long time. The mood you have been feeling, that restlessness, that frustration, that sense of something being fundamentally wrong, it is the sound of your true size trying to break through the boundaries you built around yourself. Let it break through. The world needs the full version of you, not the edited, apologetic, diminished version you have been offering. You are not too much. You were just surrounded by people who were not enough to hold all of who you are. Tip 10. The change you are feeling is not a problem. It is a promotion. Everything you have been experiencing lately, the mood shifts, the restlessness, the sense that something needs to change, your mind has been treating all of it as evidence that something is wrong, that you are broken, that you need to fix yourself, that if you could just figure out what the problem is and solve it, everything would go back to normal. But here is the part that changes everything when you really let it land. Nothing is wrong with you. What you are feeling is not a malfunction. It is an upgrade. Think about what happens before any significant period of growth. There is always discomfort first. Always. The caterpillar does not transform into a butterfly through comfort and stability. It literally dissolves inside the cocoon. Everything it was breaks down completely before anything new can form. And if you could ask the caterpillar what that process felt like, it would probably say something very similar to what you have been feeling. Confused, uncomfortable, uncertain, and convinced that something is terribly wrong. You are in a transition, and transitions are messy by nature. They do not come with clear instructions or predictable timelines. They come with doubt, with questioning, with moments where you are sure you are moving backward when you are actually moving forward. The old version of you is dissolving, not because it was bad or wrong, but because it is no longer big enough to hold who you are becoming. And that dissolving process feels exactly like what you have been describing. Heaviness, uncertainty, a mood that shifts without explanation, a sense that the ground beneath you is no longer solid. But here is what you need to understand about this moment. The ground is not unstable because you are falling. It is unstable because you are rising, and the foundation you built for the old version of yourself cannot support the new one. You are not losing your footing. You are outgrowing the floor you have been standing on. And the discomfort you feel is not a warning to stop. It is a signal that the growth is working, that something inside you is expanding, changing, rearranging itself into a configuration that will serve you far better than the one you have been operating from. The people around you may not understand this. They may see the changes in your mood, in your energy, in your behavior, and assume that something is wrong. They may try to fix you, to pull you back to who you were, to help you return to normal. But normal is what you are leaving behind. Normal is the version of yourself that said yes when you meant no, that carried weight that was not yours, that apologized for existing, that worked until exhaustion and called it virtue. That version served a purpose, and you can honor it without returning to it. The new version does not need to be fixed because it is not broken. It is just unfamiliar, and unfamiliar always feels uncomfortable before it feels like home. Your mood is not a problem to be solved. It is a compass pointing you toward what needs attention, what needs release, what needs to change. Every uncomfortable emotion you have felt recently has been trying to guide you. And now that you have heard these messages, now that someone has finally named what has been happening beneath the surface, you have a choice. You can resist the transition, cling to the old patterns, and try to force yourself back into a shape you have already outgrown. Or you can surrender to the process, trust that the discomfort is temporary, and let yourself become whoever is waiting on the other side of this shift. The quiet shift that changes your mood. It is not something happening to you. It is something happening for you. And the version of you that emerges from this, the one who sets boundaries without guilt, rests without earning it, speaks up without apologizing, and lives in the present without fearing the future. That version is not a fantasy. It is already forming. You can feel it in the moments when the heaviness lifts and everything suddenly feels clear. Those moments are glimpses of where you are headed, and they are becoming more frequent, which means the shift is accelerating, which means you are closer than you think. So here is what I want you to sit with as we come to the end of this. Everything you have heard today was not new information. You knew all of it, every single piece. You felt it in your bones before you heard the words. That is not a coincidence. That is confirmation that you are more aware than you give yourself credit for, and that the answers you have been searching for outside yourself have been inside you this entire time. The shift is not something you need to wait for. It is already happening. It has been happening since before you pressed play on this message. The only thing left to decide is whether you are going to work with it or against it. And I want to be honest with you about something. Awareness without action is just entertainment. You can listen to 100 messages like this one and feel seen, feel understood, feel temporarily lifted, and then go right back to the same patterns that brought you here. That is not transformation. That is consumption. Real change happens when you take what resonates and apply it to the way you live, not someday, not when you feel ready, but now. In the next conversation. In the next moment when your body asks for rest and your mind says not yet. In the next interaction where someone crosses a line and your instinct is to apologize for their behavior. That is where the shift becomes real. In the small, unglamorous, everyday choices that nobody sees but you. You are not the same person you were when you started listening to this. Something has shifted, even if it is just a crack in a wall you have been maintaining for years. That crack is not damage. It is an opening. And what comes through that opening is entirely up to you. Trust what you felt today. Trust the resonance, the recognition, the quiet knowing that said, yes, this is exactly what I needed to hear. That knowing is your compass, and it has never been wrong. Follow it, even when it leads somewhere uncomfortable, especially when it leads somewhere uncomfortable, because that is where everything changes, and you are ready for what is on the other side, even if you do not fully believe that yet. You will. Give it time. Give it action. Give it the next 21 days. You have two options after this video. Close it and hope things shift. Or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are.